right, here we go. Docile on the left. The whole situation there has to go this way an inch. There it is.
Don't turn. Go!
Oh, we are inside. We are inside. Eyes on your hand. Eyes on your hand. We got a match. Make some noise in here, baseline.
Steve Black!
We got a match.
Steve Black here on Serious and Silliness, pretty much the best arm wrestler to ever come out of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Steve, how you doing, man? Wow.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, man. I'm definitely up there. I'm quality at a New York arm wrestler, but there are a few above me for sure.
No, it doesn't matter because they're not doing my show. So
yes. That makes me the best out of the boroughs now. I have just elevated the number one guy now.
No, that's it. All right. As far as I'm concerned, you're the best in all 5 boroughs. And if somebody else comes on and gets me a lot of views and subscribers, you might get bumped out. But until then,
we'll have to do a live match on your show, and we'll compete for the title.
Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be.
Oh, that'd be
awesome.
great. I would do it. I'm down.
So you are the first guy I've ever interviewed, the first person I've interviewed on my show that has the same accent as me.
So no accent.
Yeah. That's right. And what part of New York you from?
Queens, born and raised.
Do you like the autographs I have behind me then?
Yeah, I'm a big Mets fan right there. Could have worn my Mets hat.
That's right. Well, this guy, I remember. Yeah, everybody knows that guy. But do you remember that guy?
I can't. The picture's a little hard to make out.
That's Gary Carter.
Oh, yeah, of course. Gary Carter's.
And this one's Lee Mazzilli.
Yeah, well, Gary Carter, my sister, my mother, everybody had a crush on Gary Carter. You know, the catchers always get all the girls. You know?
Yeah, he was a man.
Yeah,
well, Lee Mazzilli was from, I think he was from Brooklyn, actually. Yeah, he was from Brooklyn. Because I remember when I used to live in Brooklyn, that's when they won the World Series in '86, and I was a kid. And besides the ticker tape parade, they had like a parade in Brooklyn, and he was there because he was from the neighborhood, you know. But anyway, so I asked this to Paul and I asked this to Michelle, and it's just it's strange to me. It's like if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, I would go to my local bodybuilding gym and there'd be trainers and they teach you how to weight train. If I wanted to be a powerlifter, I'd go to a powerlifting gym and there'd be trainers and so on and so forth. There's no place to go to become an arm wrestler. How do you become an arm wrestler?
Interesting you ask me that, because being an arm wrestler from New York, arm wrestling in New York is a lone wolf kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Most of the other teams, when I would go to nationals, like Louisiana has a huge team. Connecticut has a team. New Jersey has a team. Mm-hmm. Teams train, they're clubs. Mm-hmm. And that's how you would train. You'd actually have to find a local club and get with them. Because like you're saying, if you don't get with a club, you will never rise in the ranks. And over the last 3 years, I've actually helped build some really strong clubs out on Long Island. And we have a really good new group of arm wrestlers coming up, spreading the word, building it, bringing it back up. We actually started a new league, Empire Arms, and I'm going to be hosting tournaments in New York City, trying to put New York City back on the map.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Actually, yeah, you know what? I spoke to Michelle, and I didn't even know this. There's a Brazilian guy, like really, right? Because I live in Jersey now, in North Jersey.
Barbosa.
Yeah, and he has a team like literally 10 minutes, like, I don't want to exaggerate, 15 minutes away from me. Like from Union, New Jersey. I had no idea. And she's like, well, if you want to, I'm like, I don't know. You know.
Got a lot of great pullers there. You got Jason Malo, Steve Zell, Pedro. There's so many guys that pull on that team. They're all phenomenal arm wrestlers.
Really?
Marcio is the legend in that group. He's a world class, legit top of the list right there.
Yeah, he doesn't speak much English. Am I right?
No, he speaks English.
He does?
Yeah.
But then there's 2 Brazilian guys that are super heavyweights that I'm thinking of. Because one guy had like somewhat long hair, didn't speak a lick of English.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
But he might be like really from Brazil then.
Yeah.
The guy from New Jersey, he speaks English.
Okay. I've watched both of them. I've watched both of them arm wrestle because ever since I interviewed Paul, I've been going down this rabbit hole of arm wrestling videos. you know. So I've watched you, I've watched, and of course I watched all the, you know, the big super heavyweight guys. I've watched Paul, I've watched you, I've watched Michelle, I watched a couple of other girls, so on and so forth. And it's like fascinating to me because, like I told Paul, it is the simplest thing, but yet so complicated.
Extremely complicated.
So what I mean by that is, like, young kids in grade school will arm wrestle. It's like the go-to thing to see who's stronger, who registers on the hierarchy. And but at the same time, when you really start getting into it, it's like, from what Paul and Michelle had told me, and I'm sure you'll fill me in, it's really complex. It's not easy. It's not just, you know, let's hold hands.
Well, your background's powerlifting, correct?
More bodybuilding.
Okay, well, even bodybuilding, but you know, powerlifting, bodybuilding. If I go to try to deadlift 1,000 pounds and I don't use the proper technique, what's going to happen?
Yeah, you're gonna kill yourself, right?
And if I am a competitive lifter and I use proper technique, how much did I just increase the percentage of my lifts?
That's just so true. That is really true. Yeah.
It's the same thing with arm wrestling. The difference with arm wrestling, though, is there's different types of pullers, where at least if you're trying to deadlift or clean and jerk or do certain, or benching, there's really only one. I mean, there's close grip benching and wide grip benching, you know, but in arm wrestling, there's people that pull inside and people that pull outside. That's the two simplest ways to explain it. You have guys that literally pull out of your hand through your fingers. Those are the outside pullers. And you have guys that go right in and just try to power through you. Those are the inside pullers. More of the inside pullers are the old school style arm wrestlers like myself. I'm a few years older than you. So, because you said you were a kid, I was 16 when the Mets won in '86. So,
Oh, I was 10. Okay.
yeah. So,
yeah.
So, you know, there's the old school style, but like everything else, over time, sport evolves. And matter of fact, a guy from New York, Jason Vale, was one of the first guys who started, you know, using back pressure in the proper way, combining it with the straps, which you go into when you slip. And he was beating, you know, top heavyweights, and he was 176 pounds, and he was beating like world champion heavyweights. So
really,
yeah, and that's the sport evolved, and it's even evolved even more now. It's amazing to watch, you know, some of the new kids just develop it so quickly. Where somebody like me who's been in the sport over 30 years, I'm still trying to develop my outside pulling because I have all my bad habits or my old, you know, what I'm used to doing.
Do you guys have those discussions, like who would win an arm wrestle, like today's best versus, you know, 40 years ago's best?
Of course. Yeah. Who's the GOAT, you know, who's the GOAT? And today with the internet, we have what's called the troll army, where there's this whole group of trolls that make memes and just start shit on the internet, trying to say who's the best, who's not the best, and half of them don't even know what they're talking about. Like, they start arguing with arm wrestlers, telling them the right way to arm wrestle.
Dude, it's amazing. You know, I can only imagine how you get it, but that is so true. It's like, I've had some videos that did really well. I have some videos that didn't do well. I have some videos that did really well, and I've had a lot of comments. And even the ones that did well, I had 2 videos that had over 20,000 views, and for me, that's good.
That's great.
Some of the comments were just like blowing me away. Like, I had this one, not to get off topic, we'll get back to arm wrestling in a second, but just to approve what you're saying, just to, you know, agree with what you're saying. I had this one video, and we were talking about girls, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about marriage, tradition, because I do 2 things. I do the power sports, bodybuilding, powerlifting, arm wrestling, and then I do what's referred to as the manosphere, which is basically relationships from a man's point of view, right?
Oh,
and
yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, and I had these guys from work, and they're all good dudes. They're all make a living. They all have great families. They're all married. Somebody actually commented in the comments. Somebody actually said this video would have been better with guys that were more alpha and guys that women would actually want. I'm just like, really, dude? But it's like, I don't know who you are, man. Like, I can't say, you know, what the hell do you do for a living? You know what I mean? It's unbelievable.
First of all, you're talking about a guy. What guy knows what women want anyway? So
yeah, really.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's the truth. I know. Tell me about it. All right, so getting back to arm wrestling, how did you figure out you were so good?
Well, I'm not one of those guys that, just went and won my first tournament and was just like this instant champion. I actually worked in bars most of my life. I was working in bars when I was like 15.
Mhm.
And
Bouncing?
because I almost said as a kid, in the lunch cafeteria, and
Everybody has.
I grew up in pool halls.
Right,
So we
right.
used to arm wrestle and shoot pool and play darts. So I was always competitive.
Uh-huh.
And in the bar industry, I would always wind up arm wrestling the bouncers. So I was this little 170-pound dude beating these 250-pound monsters, or having really long matches with them. That's really where it started.
Uh,
But the first competition I ever went to, I didn't win it. I took 5th place. It was a long ladder to climb because there's a lot of technique involved. So
how old were you during the first
I really
competition?
didn't actually compete until I was in my early mid 20s.
That's still relatively young. That's still young.
Yes, yeah, yeah. But there are guys starting way. Yeah, I mean the top, like the GOAT of our sport, John Brzenk. I mean, his
Mhm.
brother arm wrestles, his father arm wrestles.
Mhm.
If you have that kind of background, it makes a big difference.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, 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 yeah. I've seen him arm wrestle because, like, I'm starting to figure out who the big names are, and he was in that movie Over the Top, right? He was. He
He,
had a
he's the one who won that. There was an actual tournament, and he won that 18 wheeler.
really.
Yes, and he was in his early 20s. I'm not sure exactly. Well, I think he was young, early 20s, like 22, 20, but he won that 18 wheeler.
That's funny because I do remember, because then obviously, now that I'm like I said, going down the rabbit hole, I went back and watched the movie, and I'm like, oh, there's this one, there's that one. And I didn't know that the guy Bull Hurley was an actual arm wrestler. I had no idea, you know. Um, but so tell us, what type of what top arm wrestlers, you described the inside and the outside, what top arm wrestlers that people would know, like sort of household names, use those techniques?
Well, somebody like Travis Bagent, who's a super heavyweight champion,
Yeah.
he's an outside puller. He's one of the best timing hit top roll guys that there is.
Okay.
He just totally hits and takes you outside so quick that you're pinned before you even heard the rest of the word go.
Okay.
And then not so, and then there's a different. I didn't even go into the other styles. You want to talk about this? There's a press style too, where there's a style where guys will just flop their hand and get their shoulder behind it and just press down.
I've seen that. I've seen
That's
that.
Jerry Cataract.
Yes, yes, yes. I've seen that. Looks
So,
like it looks like his fingers are gonna fall off.
right, but the man, benches 500 pounds for warm-ups. You know what I'm saying?
Do you
So
think
his
sweating
press-
is part of his technique? Because he's just because
That's funny. That is funny.
he's just, every time I just watch him almost, he's drenched.
Yeah, he probably loses 20 pounds a match.
That's unbelievable. And the stamina on these guys. Are you sort of like that, where you could arm wrestle for 7-8 minutes at a clip?
Yeah, being a hook puller, I've had some very long matches, but 7-8 minutes, that's like insane. Like,
Yeah.
believe it or not, 30-40 seconds will probably wipe most people out.
Yeah, it feels like an eternity, I bet.
Well, I mean, think about it. Take something where you're pushing, do something like a static movement where you're pushing as hard as you can or pulling as hard as you can. How long can you do it for?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it amazes me. But the thing is that people don't realize is sometimes in those long matches, there's like dead spots where they're catching their breath, where there's almost like, it's almost like a levitation when there's nothing happening. It's just they're just sitting right there waiting for the other person to move, that they could counter it or adjust it, because like you run out of breath.
Yeah, they're exhausted.
Yeah. It's
So what was the first major title that you won?
well, obviously the New York. I won the New York States a few years in a row, going through the borough tournaments and then qualifying. That was in, like I said, in my mid 20s. Within a few years, I finally had gotten up the ladder, was winning New York, won the AAA New Yorks for Ray Darlings. So that was like, I really felt like I was a New York State champion because I was winning the both divisions, But the best I've ever done is I've only taken second place in the nationals. I've been in the top 3 4 times in the nationals. So I got 2 second places, 2 third places. And but I haven't won a national title. So
What weight division are you?
one right now I'm a little heavy. I'm like 190, but I normally pull 176. But I'm the type of guy, like I was the guy who was like, arm wrestling for most people is a hobby, because we call ourselves pros. Like you decide when you're a pro. There's no farming system. There's no either you're going to pull a pro or the amateur. I never pulled amateur. I pulled pro divisions from the minute I entered my first tournament. So that being said, like as you go through the system or whatever, I lost my train of thought. That happens to me sometimes.
Oh yeah, I do it all the time. Don't worry about it. You pull. You never pulled amateur. You pulled pro, and there's no way to actually you become a pro when you feel like becoming a pro.
Sorry, that's what threw me off thinking that. But what was that? What were we going to before that?
Your major title.
Oh, right. So
in your weight division.
Right. So I had a good point.
Dude, you have no idea. I do this all the time.
I need ADA medication, right? ADHD, whatever.
Yeah, try running a YouTube channel. And like, fuck, I gotta fucking edit that out. Oh, you got it.
So what I was gonna say is, like it's a hobby. So like I never really took it 100% serious because to me, and you're gonna get this if you interview a lot of arm wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the love of the sport. They're all competitors. It's the community that brings them in. So for me, I loved going to the competitions, but it was the after party.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have these big after parties and it was just everybody got together and it was a lot of fun. So I was always like a top 3 finisher no matter what tournament I went to, which is pretty good. I mean, I would travel wherever I traveled in the States. I was always, top 3 wherever I went. And I was known for the guy, if there was like a guy who was the unbeatable favorite guy in that weight class, I would ruin their day because I was the guy who would just get into a war with them and then they'd be done after me. But maybe I wouldn't win either. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
so
right.
I would take second or third, but I knocked him out. So that's the kind of guy I was.
Oh, yeah.
And because there was no real money in it,
you were what I refer to as Alexis Aguayo. So Alexis Aguayo was a great welterweight champion, but if you really wanted to fight Sugar Ray Leonard, you got to get past him. You had to get past him, and he was no slouch. And even if you won, you were shot by the time you got to Sugar Ray Leonard.
Exactly. But,
so good.
But I always believed if I took the time to commit myself, that I could be more. And but there was no money in it. So I actually walked away from the sport for 9 years. And I came back when in 2014 when the show Game of Arms was on AMC.
Yes.
Because a lot of my friends were on the show.
Okay.
And what happened is they just called me up out of the blue and they needed a New York referee. And because I was somebody in the sport in New York from back in the day.
Right.
And I got back in, and when I saw my same guys I was competing with, banging with, still winning.
Yeah.
I was like, let me throw my hat back in the ring.
Right.
And I did. And that's when I started competing with the WL. And I did okay. I did decent coming back in, with a little ring rust. But then I got hurt at work, wound up having to have 2 shoulder surgeries.
Oh, God.
And everything is going up to where now in September, the Worlds are in Florida. And that's all I'm training for. So hopefully I'll do well there. Hopefully I'll make a top 3 finish there.
I'm sure you will.
But I was hoping to do better. I want to be the number 1 guy before I die.
I'm sure you will. I mean, you've been in it long enough and you're persistent enough. I mean, it sounds like it's just a matter of time.
It's a tough sport. It is.
What kind of did you get both shoulders?
No, my right shoulder. I was plugging in a Gemini hoist to lift up on a building in Washington Heights, a 7-story walk up, and the apprentice knocked the cable off. I was plugging in and just watched it run down the side of the building as I'm plugging in. Almost ripped my arm off, tore my rotator cuff, my labrum, and my bicep tendon.
Oh my God! What kind of work do you do?
I'm a carpenter.
Okay, good. All right, I'm a civil worker. See, we have a lot in common.
Listen, thank God for the unions, right?
Yeah, you ain't kidding, dude. You ain't kidding. So since I it just got me thinking. We're from pretty much the same world for the most part. You're the generation ahead of me, but everything in New York City, especially back in the day, I don't know about so much today, because I really don't live there anymore, and it's kind of different with the neighborhoods changing, with the hipsters and everything, and blah blah blah. But there was always an underground competition. There was always like guys that fought underground, and it wasn't, obviously it wasn't street legal, it wasn't legal, but guys would, make money and betting on it and so on and so forth. There would always be like, basketball games in the park that were, big betting on it, so on and so forth. In New York City back in the day, because we're probably talking about the 80s and 90s, I'm assuming, right? Did that exist? Like,
sure.
I figured it would. Yeah.
and on every level. Matter of fact, in my opinion, one of the top arm wrestlers out of New York City is the guy I mentioned before, Jason Vale.
Uh-huh.
I love telling the story. The fact is that the reason he's an arm wrestler in my mind is because when we were kids, I arm wrestled him for he was challenging people for arm wrestle for $5 a match,
Uh-huh.
and that was cigarette money for me.
Yeah.
So I beat him,
Yeah.
and the guy went off and trained how to arm wrestle. That 2 years later, when I saw him, he almost ripped my arm off.
Right.
You know, and he became like this legend in the arm wrestling world, and is actually the one who brought me back into it years later at a competitive level. So, but yeah, we were always gambling, or like even now, like there's always it's a very competitive sport. You got guys that'll come up, and sometimes it's not so much the arm wrestlers betting on each other, it's side action. Like other guys will bet on, yeah, you can't beat him. He's not gonna beat him. My boy's gonna beat him.
Right. Yes.
And there's a lot of side action, and that's usually more of the gambling you'll see.
Can you go into it a little bit? I know it was a long time ago. I'm sure you won't, get anybody in trouble, but can you go into like however you refer to it, the dark matches, the underground world, or so on and so forth?
Well, like I said, it's just basically there was just, matches where if there were two guys always pulling, just like in every other sport, there's always fanboys. Right. So there'll be like one guy talking, and it'd be like, Joe can beat John, and they'll be like, no, he can't.
Right.
And then the friends will make them arm wrestle, and these guys will end up arm wrestling while we're betting money on it. So it was never.
But it was just for like shits and giggles. It wasn't like organized.
No, nothing was ever organized.
Because when I was a kid, there was this. I used to have a friend named Sammy, and he used to fight, but street fight, and it was right when. Do you remember when like the MMA, the UFC was just like kind of like breaking before Dana White had it, right? And it became the craze, and it was like Tank Abbott and who are the other Butterbean, all these crazy guys. Anyway, so there would be these underground fight clubs, if you will, and it was all ran by organized crime. And I remember this guy Sammy was a heavyweight, and he used to fight. And I never went to go see him fight. We used to work together actually, but he would tell me about it and so on and so forth. And he had no teeth in his mouth. He never fought professionally, but he had no teeth in his mouth. He used to have, he was like in his early 20s because he got all his teeth knocked out. And he would tell me, yeah, he'd fight in Brooklyn. He would fight in Long Island. He went as far as Philadelphia, and it would be all these underground, like cellars or clubs or so on and so forth, all run by organized crime. And he goes, and afterwards, win, lose, or draw, like you would eat for nothing. You drink for nothing, and so on. So as long as you were fighting. So nothing as substantial as that.
No, unfortunately, because you know what, for some reason, and I don't understand why, arm wrestling doesn't come across to people as an actual sport. So at least fighting was always.
Yeah, you're right about that.
So, and I mean, and that's the thing that blows my mind, because if you go up to a little kid or you go up to a 90-year-old lady and say, you want to arm wrestle? What's the first thing they do? They put their arm up.
Yeah.
But then you go and tell them, hey, yeah, I just came back from the nationals. I compete as an arm wrestler. They're like, that's a sport?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. People don't think there's any money in it or anything. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah.
And organized crime, they would take the sport and manipulate it. So
since
it wasn't a sport, it's just.
That's a good point. Yeah. So what were your major titles? What was your most coveted title? The one you're most proud of?
Like I said, the first ones was the New York State. I loved winning the New York State. I won it from like 4 years in a row. And that's what catapulted me on to going out and winning multiple states. Like I've won Connecticut, I've won in New Jersey, all back in the 90s. I've won multiple, whatever within the 3 or 4 hour range. I would drive to all the different state tournaments, and I won a couple here and there, and that made me feel good too when I would drive out of state.
Sure.
I don't like somebody coming to New York and winning my weight class.
Yeah, right. It's like, who is this guy? Yeah. But today, everybody knows everybody on social media. Then
they do, but unfortunately, the organizations don't work together. I think that the reason that arm wrestling doesn't cross over is because a lot of the people who are in charge are too busy trying to make money off of the arm wrestlers. Like I don't want to go into names, but the people that like qualify for the world and stuff, they get to travel to go to these other countries, and I don't see them, I mean, I don't want them to be mad at me, but I don't really see them giving it back to the sport and the athletes.
Oh, I see.
Like that's why I'm trying to do the Empire Arms in New York, where we're trying to build the sport from the arm wrestling level.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like try to just get the word out there, make it,
So what's it called? What do you have? Guys have a website?
not a website. We're just forming the LLC right now. We're just doing everything. The first tournament we're having is July 18th in Mulcahy's in Wantor.
That's in Long Island, right?
Yeah, it's a big club in Long Island where it's like if any bands left, like real bands, that's the one few venue that you would have in Long Island that you could play at.
Yeah, actually, I might be coming to that one to take a look just to.
Oh, that'd be great.
Because the Keystone is like really far from me, man. That's like almost a 3-hour trip.
You're gonna like it. It's gonna be a big event that we're throwing together.
If I come, I would like to do some videoing and like put it up on my channel if that's cool with
Sure.
you. Oh, all right, cool. Yeah, that would be pretty cool because I think some of the other people, like I think Michelle is going with her husband, and I think Paul might be going.
Sure.
Yeah, so maybe I'll do that. All right, cool. And do you have like a Facebook or an Instagram or anything like that on the Empire where people could find out what it's all about?
No, right now we're doing everything off our own personal Facebook
Okay.
and Instagram. We actually, well, on Facebook we made a group, Empire Arms. I'll send a link to you on that.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comment section. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're building that group, and yeah.
Yeah, and also I'll also put your YouTube
I appreciate that.
link in the comment section. Now, you're 51 years old.
50.
50, I'm sorry.
Almost July, I'll be 51.
Okay, yeah, because you said you're 6 years older than me, and I'm 45. But do they have do they have like categories like masters over 40
Yes.
or what do they? So do you compete in that, or do you compete in the open against everybody?
I am
Or do you do
greedy.
both?
I do both.
Yeah.
Like I like to go and win the Masters and then pull the Open. That's what I like. And it's funny because James Reed you just talked about, he actually does the polls on his group page
Mhm.
because Masters should be 50 and over, right?
Mhm.
And somehow they talked him into going down to 40 and over, and they wound up voting, and we got it back to 49 and over.
Oh, all right.
Makes more sense because
I would think so.
yeah, but a lot of these 40-year-olds are upset. They like they want to because the thing with armor, you want to pull as many classes as you can,
I see.
And one of the guys on our team is a heavyweight,
Mhm.
so he only has right and left option. So
I see.
like me, I can pull any weight class I make weight for. So if I pull the 185s, I can also, if I wanted, pull the 210s,
Mhm.
and I could pull the supers. So I could pull 6 classes with right and left just in the open classes. A super
Mhm.
can only pull 2.
I see.
So, so that's why they were trying to get them to drop the age for some of these guys. But
So why is it that you want to compete in as many classes as possible? And
well, with arm wrestling, like a lot of people don't realize, like before the competition, you have to stop training. Some guys, anywhere up to 2 weeks, some guys do more.
Mhm.
So anybody that trains religiously every day, I mean, everything I do, I carry the groceries. When I lift stuff, I try and do it in a way when I'm at work, I'm carrying stuff where people are like, what the hell are you doing? But
Yeah.
trying to, because so now when I gotta not do anything, because you want to let all the ligaments and tendons, because they're like rubber bands.
I see.
You're constantly stretching them, they get the elasticity. You want it to get tight again. You want to be as tight as you can
Uh-huh.
on tournament day. So I rested so long, I want to get as many matches as I can.
I see. Okay.
And on top of it, I want to take home as much,
Money.
many medals or trophies or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to be the man of the day. Like Brandon El Celso at one of the last tournaments, those big trophies back there in the back, he took 5 of them home.
Oh, really?
And he took 2nd place in the 6 weight class he pulled in. I mean, you know what it's like to see him sitting there posing.
That's great.
Huge, it's just
Yeah.
We're just glory hounds, arm wrestlers. We're a rare breed.
Yeah. I feel like arm wrestling is like this hidden gem, if you will. Do you remember when we were kids, they used to have, they probably still do, I just don't know. They used to have rave parties.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I
nobody
don't know if they
like
still do, but
I have no
remember.
idea. Yeah, when we were young, they used to have rave parties and like nobody knew about it. You had to it was word of mouth, or they might send out flyers. And then you would go to some hidden spot and then you open the door and it was this huge party. I feel like arm wrestling is the same way. Nobody knows about it. But as soon as you open up the door, it's like this huge world that you walk into. And it's like, where did this come from? It's like it seems like the people that are into it fall in love with it forever.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy that you just said too, because being somebody in the sport and bringing all these new people into it, that's how it's like they opened a door and it's a whole new world for them, and it changes their lives. Like these people who never knew what I mean, they knew arm wrestling, but never knew competitive arm wrestling. Now that's all they think about, all they do. You
Right,
know,
right, right.
they're constantly trying to train. They're constantly like, especially with the new guys, everybody when they first start, they want to know what the secret is. You know,
Yeah.
what's the secret? What's the where there's no secret in anything in life. It's just
Right, right,
training,
right.
training, training.
Sure.
But it's just, you know, they get that bug and they want to talk to everybody. They want to, you know, find listen, this is the one sport where like I said, how many sports can you currently enter, start tomorrow,
Hmm.
and then in a few weeks meet the current world champion and hang out and have a beer with the guy, and
Yeah,
then
no.
become such good friends with him where he's like, hey, there's a tournament in my neighborhood in 2 months, you want to come? I can't afford a hotel. You could stay at my house. That's how these people are.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's amazing.
Michelle actually said that. We were talking about it because Michelle came from a fitness background, and we were talking about how unfriendly or selfish, and this is the God's honest truth, the bodybuilding world is, because it's a selfish sport. It's all about me. And then, but once you, from what everybody tells me, as Michelle, Paul, you, once you go into arm wrestling, it is like the camaraderie is incredible. You know,
100%. Listen,
do you think that's one of the things that makes it so adhered by the players and fans?
100%. 'Cause we just had a barbecue practice, and one of the things we were talking about is that exactly the conversation we just had about almost every sport, it's a competition. You're
Hmm.
competing. You don't let people know what your training is. You don't let people know what you're doing. You keep it's like everything is covert, right?
Hmm.
Arm wrestling is the only sport where a guy will come up arm wrestle you and beat you and then be like, okay, you know what you did wrong? This is how I beat you and
Ah,
show you right then and there. And you're
right,
like,
right, right, right,
so for the new people, they're like, what's going on?
right. Yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that because they're actually realizing that and the people are being so real with them and actually genuinely trying to help them, you
Hmm.
actually feel a connection with these people.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think that openness is a huge part which makes the community strong because everybody tries. There's always a few, but the majority is very helpful, very generous. They're very caring people. They're like let you right into their home, into their world, you know.
So all those guys that talk so much shit on the table and appear to be villains, like the Travises and the Devin Larratts. So you're telling me that's just a put on? They're really actually good guys.
Yeah, yeah, and we were just having this conversation too about how I love the transformation. Like there are some guys like Nick Stone, who's a new kid, only been pulling 2 years, but he's like a world class power lifter, just got into the sport of arm wrestling, and how he puts on the game face. And he's a large, scary man,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And then you start talking to him, and he's like this sweet kid. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
Nice guy, very polite, make
yeah,
sure he shakes your hand, eye to eye contact, hey, listening to what you're saying.
yeah.
And, so to me, I love watching these guys, how and then once they go, they put that face on,
And that's
they
it. It's
want
a
to kill
wrap.
the person across them. It's like, who is this guy? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, like I said, the reason why I'm enjoying this conversation is because you and I come from the same world. And the truth of the matter is, and I guess this goes throughout any sport, or a legitimate tough guy never acts tough.
No, yeah.
It never does. Never. It's the guy that, the guy that, the 19-year-old kid that's looking to prove something acts tough. But the guy who's, 30, 40, 50, has been around the block and so on and so forth, nicest guy in the world. You wouldn't want to mess with him, but the nicest guy in the world. So I'm assuming that once you get on the table, Steve Black is ready to rip your arm off.
All right, you get across from the table for me. If it's in a competition, we're not friends. If we're practicing, I'm training is one
Right,
thing.
right, right, right.
But yeah, no, I definitely try to. I actually don't really pay attention to the person I'm arm wrestling. I basically just try to focus on my hand, my position, and where I want to be
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to be starstruck
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to underestimate. So I try to take the person out of the equation and just go arm wrestle the hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like that hand when I grip up because it's like you're coming onto my table.
Yeah,
You're trying to embarrass me.
Right.
I'm not gonna let that happen. I'm do the best I can to,
So
stop
I've seen some of your arm wrestling videos. You're not much of a shit talker when you're on the table.
No, I don't.
No. Do you like that that kind of thing when the guys are shit talking?
Some are very entertaining. I don't like when it's done to me, to be honest. So I don't do it out of respect because I'm the type of person, if I don't like it, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But like I'm friends with a lot of guys. Like I'm real. I've known Travis 25 years. And you want to talk about shit talkers? He's one of the biggest shit talkers in the game.
Yeah. Have you ever? I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
He's like the Muhammad Ali of arm wrestling.
Yeah. Have you ever been across from somebody where they're shit talking to you and you're arm wrestling and I don't know how, like a Travis or a Devin Larratt or whatnot, and they're shit talking, and I don't know how the guy who has his hand free doesn't just crack him right in the mouth. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, how do they deal with this shit? Because you're this close.
They don't. Listen, I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to start up any old shit.
Right.
But I've set somebody straight on that. I've had somebody cross the line, to the point where I was like, I pulled him away from the table and was like, dude, we could just go right now.
Right.
And oh no, and then right away, it's like you're talking about the guys that bark, and it's like, no, dude, I'm just trying to do this. No, fuck you.
Right.
You crossed the goddamn line, and then they shut up.
Yeah.
So, but I've only had to do that once. That was actually a real thing. But usually it gets to the point where, like anything else, people talk. Like, yo, I wouldn't do it with that guy.
No, that is the truth. That is the truth. And I remember I watched this one. You're 100% right, because that's going to lead me to my next question. But I watched this one arm wrestling, and I was watching it with my wife, and that's how intriguing it is. My wife, who owns a hair salon and is like the girliest girl you ever meet, loved watching it with me, right? But I was watching this Devin Larratt arm wrestle Dave Chafee, is that his name?
Oh yeah, Dave, yeah.
And I don't know much about them. I don't know anything. But when they first started, Devin really wasn't talking shit to him directly. He was talking more shit to the ref. Until he beat him and he kind of took his confidence away. Then he started, chirping. But off the bat, and in my head, I'm saying to myself, he knows this guy's not going to take his shit. He knows he's and people that talk seem to unless you're a like you said, a Muhammad Ali, but people that talk generally know who they can get away with it and who they can't. But I don't know much about the guy. I know when he came out, he looked really impressive and intimidating because he's this huge human being. And then he's also he's a prison guard, right?
Corrections officer,
yeah, he's a corrections officer. So you right away, you don't want to mess with this guy, right? But it seemed like Devin knew, well, let me not really dig too deep into this one. You think that's a possibility, or it was just,
You just watched the Michael Todd Devin match too, right?
Yeah.
You didn't see the same thing, like until he knew he had him, until he started beating him. Right. That's when he started saying stuff to him.
Right.
Like, I told you I'm special, he said.
Right.
But he didn't start. He didn't come out. So to me, I'm not sure. I'm not Devin.
Right.
To me, watching it, what I would think is maybe he's thinking if he comes out at first, he's just going to make him angry.
Right.
But if he does it after he's already in his head when he's worried, now he's got the crack in the armor.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I think that might be some of their styles, and which is smart. You don't want to poke the bear, but you do want to kick him when he's down.
Which is such a scumbag thing to do.
Some guys will win at any cost.
Yeah, right. I tell you that it is entertaining, but that leads me to my next question. My wife, I put it on after I interviewed Paul Lynn. I put it on, and I just put in like Devin Larratt versus this one, Michael Todd versus that one. And my wife is like, my wife is like, hairdresser, typical. I don't have to tell you. And she was loving it. And it was a WAL contest. I think it was these super matches, right? We were glued to the TV. Why don't you think it's mainstream? Because I don't know anybody who changes the channel or stops watching when it's on YouTube and you put it in front of them.
Honestly, I think part of the reason is that most people just don't understand. They don't know enough about it. Because when people see it, they don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like remember when you talk about like how when UFC first started,
Mm-hmm.
people are like, oh, they're just wrestling on the ground.
Yeah.
There's no action. They don't know what's happening, but they built up. I think it's the same thing with arm wrestling, because when they see the smaller guy beat this big, massive guy,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't compute to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't understand it. And also too, I think it's the marketing. And I also believe that the people behind it are always trying to make money. Like since the sport's not really big and organized, there's not one organization. There's not like a players union.
Gotcha.
What happens is these leagues will pop up, like the WAL has all their contracted athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these contracted athletes can't go compete in other big money televised events.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're stopping the big matches that could probably make the big draws,
Mm-hmm.
which hopefully YouTube and the internet and like what Larry Wheels is trying to do, hopefully that's going to start changing. And these organizations are going to have to start realizing that, you know, the sport is the athletes.
Right.
And if they put on the show, they could still make the money,
Mm-hmm.
but they shouldn't try to own them like, you know, like property. They got to let these guys compete, because it's some arm wrestlers a short lifespan. It's not a, you know, you're abusing your body
Mm-hmm.
the way it's not supposed to be designed. And some people, especially too, like abusing it to a level where their competitiveness passes their health priorities, and they're on so much gear, you know, especially the Europeans. That's why you never see any European champions in their 50s. Their careers are done real early, but in America, you see a lot of older guys that are still competing, you know?
And sure.
I think that has to do with the fact that, you know, they're abusing their body on a chemical level young, to the point that when they get to a certain age, they're just done.
Yeah, it could very well be. And it's from what I know, in Europe, it is very easy to get your hands on stuff, and it's very affordable, and sometimes it's even free, especially in the Middle East. So if it's free and the more you can get, the more attainable it is, the more you're going to use. That's just the way it goes.
In a sport where, you know, some countries were giving their champions houses if they won the worlds, you know, or
there you go.
They're paid athletes.
They're just going to be giving them right.
It's like any other, you know, major league sport. They got doctors firsthand that are giving you, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah. No, you're 100% right, because these huge power lifters, bodybuilders, arm wrestlers, they're all coming out of the Middle East, Europe, Eastern Europe, especially Russia, the Ukraine, Chechnya. They're all coming from over there. It's amazing, you know, it's unbelievable. You see, where did they come out of the woodwork? It's unbelievable. All right, last question, and I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
So who is a bigger fan of Michelle Dugan, you or her granddaughter?
There's no question that I am, without a doubt, the president of her fan club. This is probably going to get me murdered. Yeah.
How did you guys become so friendly?
Well, because I didn't know that there was a competition. I was just obviously stating the fact that I'm the president of a fan club and the #1 fan.
Oh,
I see. You know, I stand to be corrected, I guess. You know, or my life has been threatened several times on my.
That's funny.
Unfortunately, she's got a wit that is pretty much unmatched. So I'm kind of out of my league trying to
really?
Yeah,
that's funny.
She puts me in my place more times than I like to say. Right?
And this is Michelle's granddaughter?
It's James. Yeah, James's daughter. I believe it's James's daughter.
Okay. That's, you know, and for people who don't know, how good is Michelle?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Michelle is phenomenal.
I know.
Michelle is, you know, she's world class. Well, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize, like, I'll get into that, especially for the women's before you go. Arm wrestling is the one sport where you can come into and have nothing to do with it, and within 5 to 7 years have a shot at being like a world competitor. But you have to have what it takes. You have to have the genetics, you have to have the training discipline. And with her background, I mean, the stuff she's been through, you know, physically, mentally, she's a warrior.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fact that she actually fell in love with the sport,
Hmm.
it only took her within 5 years. She was one of the best women in the United States, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure pound for pound in the United States, there's not a woman that wants to get on table across from her for any amount of money right now. I mean, they might say they will, but they won't put up their own money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
telling you
Yeah.
something right there.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
she's definitely got her work cut out with her for some of the Europeans,
Yeah.
you know. But I think that if she keeps sticking with it, that, you know, she's our best chance. You know, she's legit,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
legit.
Yeah. So, besides the Empire Arm, what other contests are you going to be doing?
Well, I'll be at Keystones,
Okay.
which is James's event in PA,
Okay.
Harrisburg, PA, I think is where they're having
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's a couple other tournaments. James isn't supporting the Worlds in Florida, but I'll be going to that.
Okay. Okay. The
that
Worlds means what? The WAL?
No, there's several organizations. There's
Okay.
only one that qualifies for what's considered the Worlds.
I see.
Like I said, they kind of got like a monopoly on it, because that's what I'm saying is, like, most of their qualifiers are on the West Coast. You know, thank God there was a qualifier this year on the East Coast, but for other events, and that's what I'm saying, it needs to be more open. You know, like, I'm not trying to
see.
burn any bridges. I'm just giving my opinion, but I'm
Truth.
sure.
Truth
But
is the
unfortunately,
truth.
when you give your opinion, you get hated for it. But
Yeah, that is what it is, man. You
but
know?
that's what I'm saying. There's so much division in the sport where it needs to come together. But there's only one where you can qualify, where you can compete in a world level. And this is the first time in 10 years where it's actually going to be in the United States. Usually it's out of the States. Usually it's, you know, somewhere else, Japan, Russia.
That's pretty cool. And it's going to be in Florida in September, you said?
Yes.
That's pretty
Yes.
cool. So, okay. So the Empire Arm is July 18th. Where in Long Island?
It's in Wantor at
Okay.
Mulcahy's in Long
Okay.
Island, July 18th. It's a Sunday, unfortunately, for some people, but we'll be moving up to Saturdays. First day with the venue, we got to prove ourselves. But once we have this, it's going to be a huge event. You know,
Okay.
we're expecting a huge turnout for this.
Yeah, that one's a little closer to me. That one's probably maybe an hour and a half from me. So I could probably do that one. And then the Keystone in Pennsylvania, that is when? June when?
What's that? The Keys 26th. It's a couple weeks.
Oh, 26th. Okay. And that's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. All right. So I'll make sure to put the link to Empire and your YouTube link in the comment section. And dude, I really, really appreciate you doing this. And good luck to you. Well, I don't, you know, you don't really need luck.
No luck involved, man.
Yeah, you don't really, at this point, you know what you're doing, you know, but really, really great to have you on, man. And I wish you all the luck in the world. And yeah, I think I am going to make it out to the Empire just to see what it's all about. And then maybe I'll take some videos and put it on my channel and so on and so forth. And it'd be great to, like, you know, meet guys like you and Michelle and Paul and so on and so forth.
Yeah, listen, it'd be nice to meet you in person too, man. And hopefully, you know, we could grow together and keep doing stuff and, you know, feed off of each other. And
it'd be great. I would love to, man. I really would love to.
Hey, listen, you make more with a fist than you do with a finger. So I think the more people that work together can only be better, you know?
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. And thanks again, man. And have a great night. Okay.
You too, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
You got it, bro.